G'day gamers, Ranger Tony here with another Pathfinder Kingmaker video. Today I'm going to do a little bit of an introduction to the new class that has come out that is part of the, I suppose it's part of the Beneath the Stolen Lands DLC. It's the Slayer class. Now, I first had a look at this a few days ago when I got the download and had and saw it was available. It's a brand new class for me as well. I've never seen this class described before. And so at first I wasn't sure what to make of it. Now, the description, skilled at tracking down targets, Slayers are consummate hunters living for the chase and the deadly stroke that brings it to a close. Slayers spend most of their time honing their weapon skills and studying the habits and anatomies of foes and practicing combat maneuvers. Now, what does all this mean? What is the Slayer? Well, when I look back through a lot of the role-playing and the fantasy novels that I've read over the years and all that sort of stuff, one thing that sort of stands out is a lot of people like the idea of a bounty hunter. And in role-playing games themselves, when I've played them, either tabletop or computer role-playing games, anytime you wanted to build a bounty hunter, you sort of looked at it from one of two angles. You either came at it and said, well, rogues make really good bounty hunters because they're great at stealth and they know how to pick locks and all that sort of stuff, so they can get around in that urban environment. They don't do too bad outside. It's not their best area, but stealth is still possible for them. And they've got some okay combat skills, so they make a pretty good bounty hunter. And, you've got the old adage, it takes a thief to catch a thief. So it was often, the idea was as if the bounty hunter was mainly trying to track down thieves and stuff like that, then having those rogue/thief skills was good. So you'd often build your bounty hunters based on a rogue. But the other way to look at it was to build it based on a really good hunter. And of course, the consummate hunter in role-playing games is the ranger. They live for the hunt, they are perfect, great trackers and good fighters, and they have some stealth and all that sort of stuff. And so a lot of people would play the bounty hunter as a ranger. And, I've done both before in various situations where I've wanted to do like a bounty hunter type situation. Well, this is what the Slayer is, because the Slayer is a combination of both the rogue and the ranger. Right? So when we look at what we are given, we're not given any spells, and if you've seen any of my videos on rangers, you'll know that I do often build a Slayer a ranger where I don't give them any wisdom, so that they can't cast spells, because as far as the history of rangers go in role-playing games, their ability to cast spells is a fairly recent thing. I mean, it's probably been around for 20 years or more, but when the class first came out, the ranger was actually a subclass of fighter, not of cleric. So they didn't have divine spells at the time. All they had was their fighting ability and tracking abilities and hunting abilities and things like that. And eventually they became a divine caster and could gain spells that way. So yeah, Slayer doesn't get any spells, but they have their Slayer proficiencies. So they're proficient with all simple and martial weapons, as well as light armor, medium armor, and shields, except for the tower shields. So that's pretty standard. In fact, that's exactly what the Ranger has, right? And their big feature is the studied target. So when we look at this, a Slayer can study an opponent and he can see as a move action. The Slayer then gains a +1 bonus on weapon attack and damage rolls against it. The DCs of Slayer class's abilities against the opponent increase by 1. If a Slayer deals sneak attack to a target, he studies that target, allowing him to apply his studied bonus against that target, including to the normal damage weapon rolls. At 5th, 10th, 15th, and 20th level, the bonuses increase by 1. At 7th, he can study an opponent as a move or a swift action. So what does this mean? Well, most of the Rangers archetypes have the ability to have a favored enemy, and they have to pick a particular enemy, and from then on they get this bonus against that enemy, and they get to choose several enemies over the course of their career, with the exception, as we can see here, of the freebooter. And the freebooter has their Bane, where they can point out an enemy, and themselves, the freebooter themselves and their allies, so their party members, all gain a bonus, a +1 bonus to attack and damage against that opponent, and that bonus goes up over time. Well, that's what this studied target is doing for the Slayer, except it's only applying to the Slayer. It's not applying to the entire party like the freebooter had. So it's much more like the favored enemies of the Ranger, but it doesn't apply to just one enemy type. You can pick out any opponent as a Slayer, and as long as you're willing to either give up your movement action for 1 round or wait until you've successfully done a sneak attack against them, you can then study that target and you get a bonus against that. Now, what I have seen is there was a Slayer against one of my party when I was doing a run through the Beneath the Stolen Lands dungeon. And so one of my party members had the studied target attribute on them, and that stayed there forever. So it doesn't wear off, it stays around forever. And essentially, if that Slayer, that was, I think it was a goblin, if that goblin hadn't have died, then they could have come back at any time later and still had that bonus. So interesting. But yeah, so that's what the studied target does. Now, what else do you get as a Slayer? You get some of the class skills. Basically, that's pretty much exactly what a Ranger gets. So you're not going to get any bonuses to trickery like a rogue does. So if you want to, you can spend points in that and become the party's rogue and pick locks and remove traps and stuff like that, just as you can with a Ranger, because you often would give yourself that ability as a Ranger as well. You've already got stealth, and it's not unheard of to do that. But you're not going to have you're not going to be the full-on rogue of the party, because you're not getting all of those abilities. You do get sneak attack, but as you can see here, you don't get it till 3rd level, and you only get up to level 6 of sneak attack. All right, but what that means is after 3rd level, once you've got sneak attack, you're going to automatically get a bonus to attack and damage on a target when you do sneak attack them, because as soon as you sneak attack and it becomes successful, you get a studied target on that opponent. And that means after you make that sneak attack, from then on, you're going to be able to sneak attack even better and hit even better. So that's a really interesting little feature. So you've got a couple of other little things here. You get some advanced, you can take a rogue talent, you can get even better attacks against inside attacks against an opponent who you specify as a quarry. You can increase your movement speed and things like that. But the really interesting thing here is, much like the rogue has their rogue talents, which they can get every even level, where they can just pick some rogue specific feats, the Slayer gets the same thing. But not only can they pick any of the rogue talents that they would normally get as a rogue of the same level as they are. So if I'm a 4th level Slayer, I could get whatever rogue talents were available to a 4th level rogue. But not only that, but they can also choose from the Ranger combat feats as well, the combat styles. But here's where it gets really weird, right? When you play a Ranger and you pick a combat style at level 2, so let's say you pick 2-weapon combat, like the example says here, that then locks you into using 2-weapon combat from then on. You can't change. The Slayer can. The Slayer doesn't get locked into any one particular type of combat style like the Ranger does. So the Slayer has that advantage of being able to pick a bonus feat from any of the Ranger the Ranger combat styles, as long as their level is high enough. So once their level is high enough, they can choose from the more advanced combat feats. But what it means is if you want to, at second level, you can go and take 2-weapon fighting, even if you have none of the prerequisites that you need to be able to take that. And then at, say, level 4, you might decide to take one of the archery feats, even though you have none of the prerequisites for that. And then at level 6, you might want to take one of the 2-handed weapon feats, even though you still don't have any of the prerequisites for that feat either. So it's very strange. It gives you a lot of flexibility. The other thing that I will note is that you start off with a base attack bonus of 1, which a rogue doesn't. A rogue starts with a base attack bonus of 0. So it means that you're already starting off being a little bit better at combat than the rogue. But of course, you don't start with sneak attack like most of the rogues do and things like that. So it seems like a versatile character, but I think from my point of view, when I looked at all of this, you've really got to have a decent plan as to what you want to do with this character. Because, like, okay, I've heard it said about the Bard that the Bard is Jack of all trades, master of none. So is the Slayer, right? You don't get, apart from at third level getting sneak attack, you don't really get any specific rogue skills, right, until you decide to pick them as a Slayer talent. But if you've seen me build a rogue, I generally don't pick any of the rogue talents. I pick a combat feat when I have my rogue talents available at every even level. And so I don't know that as a Slayer, I would really be picking many, if any, of the rogue talents at that point. The one thing I will say, however, the one thing I would pick, right, because you only get sneak attack at level 3, I would pick the accomplished sneak attacker, which basically bumps your sneak attack level up to the same or closer to what a rogue has. Now, a rogue gets a new sneak attack every 2 levels. You get a new sneak attack every 3 levels. Accomplished sneak attack will bring that a little bit closer to a rogue, but you're never going to be the full rogue of, 10 levels of sneak attack by level 20. It's not going to happen. Or 9 levels by level 19 or whatever it is. But it will make you a little bit better at sneak attack and give you a little bit more damage every few levels. So that is the only specific rogue feat that I can see straight away that you would want to take as a Slayer. All right? And then looking at the other archetypes of the Slayer, what do they bring to the market? Well, the Vanguard is an interesting one because you still get the same progression of sneak attack, but you don't get any of these Slayer talents until you're up at level 6. So that really limits you in the first few levels. How do they overcome that? Well, you get the ability to take teamwork feats and use them. So you get a few free teamwork feats that help you out. And that's actually quite good because I'm probably going to do a video soon on teamwork feats in this game because I don't know that they're used as well as they should be. There are some really good feats in there, and some of them require little to no effort to get, and they can be really useful. So the Vanguard is a Slayer who's designed to use with teamwork feats. The Deliverer is meant to be an assassin, but I really don't see, like they're and this is where it does get weird, because suddenly they're a divine spellcasting slayer, and it's not even it's not even like they just got the ranger's ability to cast spells after about level 6 or whatever it is that the ranger gets them. No, you get them straight away, and you're sort of like a paladin or inquisitor, but you're also got all this other stuff. So this one is even more of a jack of all trades, master of none than just a standard slayer ever is, because you've got all this other stuff being thrown in now where you can actually cast divine spells as well. And then you've got the Spawn Slayer, where your main extra ability is this ability to take on demons and those sorts of things. And you've got some special abilities designed to take on very large opponents or demonic opponents. Things like that sort of help you out. So, yeah, I don't know. As I said, I played the Slayer a little bit. It certainly looks like an interesting class up front, but I don't know whether I would rather have a rogue and a ranger in my party, or even, and if you've seen any of my videos and you've heard me talk about all this sort of stuff, I generally don't dual class or multi-class my characters. I generally, if I'm building a rogue, I build a rogue. If I want to build a ranger, I'll build a ranger. So the only reason I would play a slayer is if I did really want to do something that had a mix of rogue and ranger. I just don't think that mix of rogue and ranger is really all that well done in the slayer. So I almost feel like I would multi-class a ranger rogue and probably end up with something that was as good, if not better, than what the slayer already is. Don't get me wrong, the studied target that you've got as a slayer is very good. It costs you movement, or you have to wait until you get a sneak attack in, but it gives you that bonus to damage, and it's not limited to just one particular type of opponent. You can point out an opponent that's causing problems, or just any opponent really, and get that ability on them, and that's good. That gives you an advantage over what the ranger can do, except of course for the freebooter, but the freebooter still has to take out a movement to be able to give that, but he gives it to everybody. So there's lots of give and take, but you really, apart from the sneak attack, you don't really get any rogue abilities except what you're going to take as your slayer talents. So you're not getting weapon finesse, you're not getting any of those sorts of things. And then once you actually want to pick your ability points, this is where it's interesting, because they're basically pointing out to you that you're going to need strength, you're going to need dex, and you're probably going to want constitution as this. And I do agree, because you're not getting weapon finesse, so you're probably not going to build this character as a dex-based melee fighter. You could go as a ranged slayer, but really, I see this. There's really no specific feats that get given to you to say that you're better off being one-handed melee, two-handed melee, dual-wielding melee, or ranged. There's nothing there. It's purely up to you as to how you want to play it. And because of that flexibility that you can take any ranger combat style feats in any order that you want and mix and match from different combat styles, means that if you wanted to, you could potentially build a character that is both good at ranged and good at melee. I don't know that I would want to, but it means that you've got to, as I said earlier, you've got to have a really definite idea as to how you want to build this character before you go into it, because you've got so much choice that if you don't have a definite idea and plan out what you're going to do, you're going to end up with a character that's just very mediocre and not focused on doing any particular task in your party. So, unless you've got that plan, you don't know, should you build strength as the primary attribute or should you build dex? You're going to want some con there for a bit of extra hit points if you're going to be frontline, and this character is designed to be more frontline than not. But you'll also see that they've only got 1d10 of hit points. So they're not the tank that a barbarian is, but they got the same amount of hit points as, the ranger or, say, a paladin or whatever. So they're going to do all right in frontline combat, but you've really got to have that plan as you come in, because there's nothing in the skills that points you in any one direction. There's nothing in the class makeup that points you in any one direction as to how you're going to build this character, what sort of path you're going to take it down. So without a very clear idea from the start as to, okay, this is going to be my Slayer, he's going to use two-handed weapons. In fact, I want him to use this particular weapon, therefore I'm going to build strength, dex, and con in these values, and as I progress, these are the skills I'm going to take, these are the feats I'm going to take at each level. If you don't have that plan, you could end up with a really just blah character here with this class, because it is very much jack of all trades, master of none. So anyway, that is my quick little intro into the Slayer and what they are. I hope you enjoyed this video. I do encourage you to try the character out. I may even try something weird and do like an entire Slayer run through of, and see how far I get in the Beneath the Stolen Lands DLC, which I'm going to be doing some videos on, so keep an eye out for that. In the meantime, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a like and follow and share it with your friends. Be sure to subscribe to the channel so you can keep up to date with all the latest videos, and I will see you for the next one. Thanks a lot. Bye.